And welcome to this exclusive UCF Sport Preview on the Night Shift YouTube channel. I am Bryson Turner, and with us to preview the UCF cross country team is UCF track and field distance coach Bryan Harmon, back for another season in Orlando. Coach, how you doing?
Bryson, I'm doing great. Couldn't be happier.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and just break this down a little bit. After last season, what's some of the biggest things you've learned about this group this time around, and what did you see during the track and field season that kind of helped influence what you're doing this fall?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing coming off last year's Big 12 championship was just a little bit of belief. We're obviously in an extremely competitive conference, and just a lot of them understanding that they put in the work just like all those other teams do, and that they're more than capable of being players, at that level. So I think the belief system rose quite a bit. I think we saw that on the track with a handful of PRs throughout the course of the indoor and outdoor season with a lot of them. And, some of them are in their last dance too. We finally have some seniors this fall. So there's a little bit maybe of some more urgency with some of them. Some of them have actually gotten a few, they've picked up some leadership qualities along the way. And it's been a real great start these first 2 weeks of practice.
Yes, one thing I was really interested in seeing is the presence of a lot of experience this time around on this roster. You know, you have Izzy, of course, in her senior season, the Jasic siblings as well, Penelope. How much of a difference is it to have that type of experience this time around?
Yeah, it's pretty huge. It really is. And when you talk about, all those girls you just mentioned, I think the one thing that was really important when Izzy went down last year, our last three meets of the season, we actually had a different number one runner each of those three meets. And so it really kind of propelled some of them to the front where they normally wouldn't be, or where they wouldn't expect to be there. They wouldn't have to take on kind of that responsibility, right? And so this year was a big weight off my shoulders throughout the summer and through these first couple of days of practice. A lot of the seniors organizing team functions on their own, letting me know, hey, coach, we got this. Hey, coach, we got that. Hey, don't worry, the freshmen got this taken care of. Or, hey, we're picking them up and bringing them over here, get their IDs or get their classes scheduled, whatever it may be. So it's just a different vibe when you've got a group of five or six, of your student athletes that really can almost do your job for you outside of writing the workouts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as far as Izzy goes, I mean, of course, she made a big splash during her freshman campaign with 2023, and by the look of it, it hasn't really been able to at least get something that low since. So what's something that, she's been doing to kind of help bookend her college career on a high note?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing right now is she's healthy. We've worked on some mechanical stuff. We're continuing to work on some mechanical stuff that, I think hopefully, or we think is going to, maintain that health. We're working a lot with obviously the sports medicine department. We're working a lot with Dr. Raquel in the sports psychology department. So there's a lot of things that she's just taken the initiative to say, hey, this is my last go round. Things maybe haven't been all that great in a lot of aspects. There's been a couple spots that you can point to or say, hey, maybe we're turning a corner here, but we never really fully turned that corner. And so I know that she wants to go out and kind of prove, I think, to herself, but also to her teammates that she can be that runner that they can trust, right? That she can go to them and say, "Hey, I got you guys. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to get that low number for us. All you guys battle behind me, and we'll be all right."
You ended up getting a couple of runners out of the transfer portal. You had Yvonne Sandui, who came last year for the track and for the track and field season. This is her first cross country season with the program, and then you have Alexandra Raquette coming over from Louisville. What did you see from a cross country perspective, at least, out of these two from the transfer portal, and how was that process?
Yeah, Yvonne obviously was a more of a middle distance runner on the track. She ran 2:04 for us in the 800, made the NCAA East Regional. But when we were looking at her, she had run 21:30, I think, for 6K cross country, but she did it on a course that actually is pretty challenging. She did it at the University of Virginia Panorama Farms course. And so you kind of look at it and you say, okay, you know what? Here's a person who's middle distance, but there's some cross country ability in there. So let's just, let's kind of take a risk. This is somebody that can help us out from a variety of angles, right? And her goals are big. And a lot of times with 800 runners, you kind of take cross country with a little grain of salt. Like some can be pretty good, some can be okay. Some of them don't care at all. Very rarely are 800 runners really, really good cross country runners, but I fully expect her to be in our top, probably 4 or 5 this year, if not, better than that. And I know she has big goals too for the cross country season. So she doesn't just look at herself as a middle distance runner. I think she hangs on to that sometimes in workouts and relishes and appreciates the fact that maybe she doesn't have to do quite as much volume as some of the other longer distance girls, but she's got big goals for cross country and she's fit in well from day one. So she brings a little bit more of that experience that you talk about, even though, it's only her second cross country season. But, she's been on the big stage a couple times. And then with Lexi, she was a Florida girl originally, and she went up to Louisville for 2 years. And the big thing with her, if you look at her freshman year at Louisville, there wasn't a ton. I think she redshirted cross country, had a few marks on the track. And then when you look at her sophomore season, there was really kind of that breakthrough. And that's not uncommon with distance runners. So when you see somebody kind of have that big breakthrough as a sophomore, that typically means that there's somebody who's doing everything right. They're sticking with it. Maybe they had some inconsistencies as a freshman. And you just work through those and your body starts to adapt as you get a little bit older. And so that's what we feel she can bring to the table is again, more experience being at a program like Louisville, but also just being kind of on the upswing in terms of getting the most out of her ability. I think she's just kind of scratching the surface.
Of course, we also have Avery Lotto and Abigail Clements, the two Osceola High School products coming back as well. Just what have you seen developmental wise out of them go so far? Because I remember seeing them getting some time last season.
Yeah, Avery's focused right now. I can tell you that. She had a great summer. You could make the argument she had the best summer out of anybody on the team. She is locked in right now. We had a workout this morning. I won't disclose the workout, but we got done and hey, how'd that feel? Coach, I was in rhythm the whole time. I felt good. I felt great. Okay, cool. So we need her. We need her to be a big part of our program. And, she's got the capabilities to be somebody who can run number two, number three, number four for us. And if she's doing that week in and week out, and, her and Lexi and Yvonne and Abby Clemens, if those two are putting or if those three or four are putting some pressure on Izzy, that's what we want. We want Izzy to be running scared. We want her to have some heat on her heels, so that complacency doesn't set in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, covering cross country as many times as I have now, I mean, depth has been extremely important for that. So with so much more experience now this time around to kind of make up that depth, how big is it this time around when you look at that? How confident are you in the depth of your squad this time?
Yeah, it's a big difference maker, and we've talked about that almost every day in these first 2 weeks, and really, using it as motivation too. So like while it's great because our workouts so far have been fantastic because we just have really a group of 15, 16 girls that, can really all hang and can challenge each other. The unfortunate thing is, we can only take 10 to the Big 12 championships and we can only run seven at the regionals. So we've already talked about, hey, listen, like you're gonna have to earn your spot. You're not just gonna get a spot by default, like maybe you did last year, especially when Izzy went down. That first year I was here, we kind of had, a pretty solid front six, and then we had a pretty solid three or four after that, and then it kind of backed off. We're a good 12, 13, 14 deep. And so there's going to be somebody who definitely deserves to run at the Big 12 championship who isn't going to get that opportunity, but it's not going to be because they did anything wrong. It's not going to be because they didn't work. It's not going to be because they didn't come in shape or didn't do what they were supposed to do over the summer. It's going to be because our depth has just put us in that really good position. And as a coach, that's what you want. But as an athlete, there comes the challenge.
UCF has not been able to finish higher than fifth in a conference championships in its championship in about a decade. So what's the best thing that this team can do in order to try and reverse that kind of fortune with the Big 12 championship this time?
Yeah, I mean, listen, top five or top six in the conference. There's five or six schools that are just they're national caliber, right? BYU and West Virginia finished 1-2 at the national championships last year. We're not concerned with BYU and West Virginia or Utah and Oklahoma State and Colorado. We feel like there's a good middle of the pack of Big 12 programs that we can really start to move up that ladder. And we feel, I think that this is the first year I think that feeling has been mutual amongst not only myself, but the rest of our coaching staff and our athletes. That we're not just going into the Big 12 kind of looking at fingers crossed and hoping, whatever comes out of it comes out of it. I think last year was a big eye opener, like I said, that we can compete at this level. And now we're going at it every single day. That our mission when we wake up and we show up at 6:30 or 6:45 every morning before that sun's up, that the goal is for every single person to push each other uh, in order to move up that ladder, in order to move up that ranks. So, I think we finished 12th out of 16 last year, which without Izzy out there to beat four teams at that meet, that was actually pretty quite impressive. I know we're kind of shooting for a top 10 finish this year. But once you get past number six, it's kind of open. In a seventh place finish, an eighth place finish, that would be thrilling for us when you talk about kind of the makeup of our team and who we are as a total track team. So yeah.
Who's somebody that we hadn't had a chance to talk about yet that's in store for a really big season?
I think you'll see the two freshmen make an impact. And last year, our impact freshman, if you will, was Avery. Now she kind of had an up and down season until you got to the Big 12 where she ran her best race of the year. But Masha and Daisy, Masha Dorothy out of Fort Myers and Daisy Ross out of Ponte Vedra, those girls know how to work, and they're already kind of inching and creeping close to that front group when we're working out. They're kind of on the heels of your Lexis and your Averys and your Izzies and your Yvonnes. So I expect them to really make a push to be in the top 10 for sure, and maybe even the top seven as we approach the regional meet. So those are the two maybe keep an eye on there.
How big is it this time around to have a smaller group of freshmen this time around with just two as opposed to like
Yeah, it's great. It's yeah, there's no comparison, and that's what the new kind of era of the transfer portal kind of helps us with that, right? We don't have to rely too much on bringing in these bigger classes and kind of throwing a bunch up against the wall and seeing what sticks, right? We can be a little more meticulous in our recruiting, and that's how we felt with Masha and Daisy is that okay, here's two people. We know they can do it. They got the goods. Masha's a state cross country champ, and I think 3A in the state of Florida, or maybe 4A. I don't know. We're one of those two. But anyway, so we anticipated them being able to come in and make an impact. So
I saw that I remember when I was at one of the track meets last year, met Bailey McLean and read about how, she came over from the run club. I hadn't seen her on cross country. I think she came in during the track season, but what did you see from her from a cross country perspective that you brought her into the fold here?
yeah, she just kind of made that. type of an impact in the winter and the spring. And we were very kind of upfront with her in terms of what the deal was in terms of bringing her over from the club and making sure, with our roster numbers, what we kind of needed her for and what kind of opportunities she was going to get. And she was, she understood and she was thrilled with just having the opportunity. And I think during the outdoor season, she might have earned herself even an extra race or two than we initially kind of anticipated because she just was running well. And when the roster limit got put in place, and then all of a sudden, before the House settlement was finalized, they started talking about grandfathering some athletes in. We weren't really interested in doing that, and Bailey was kind of the one person where Coach Boone was like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so. Like, let me just kind of make sure, it's cool with the other girls and that, she's somebody that, fits." And I kind of knew she did, but I asked a couple of the upperclassmen hey, if we had a chance to bring Bailey back, would that be cool with you guys? And it was like overwhelmingly, "What, coach? Are you kidding me? Yes, she's awesome. We want her around, please, blah, blah, blah." So when I told her that, "Hey, if you're willing to stick around, we'd love to have you." And she was just so happy. And so she's just somebody who's just so grateful for, I think, the opportunity, and she's just making the most of it. And, she's going to run this Friday. We're not taking a full squad up on Friday, but she's one of the people who's going to run. And she knows this might actually be her only chance this fall. So I know she's going to make the most of it. And I'm actually excited to see what she can do. But she's just a good kid. And yeah, brings positive energy, is supportive. Nobody looks at her as, "Oh, she's the girl from the club team." She's just Bailey. She's part of the squad. She's part of the team.
Speaking of Friday, you go up to for the Florida Intercollegiate in Jacksonville. You only have three chances to run before you get to the Big 12 championship. How do you take advantage of so few meets to get ready for the conference championship?
Yeah, so Friday, we're gonna run the two freshmen. So they're gonna, get that chance to get that rep in. Bailey, like I said, two sophomores, Ava and Madison are also gonna get a chance. And we're actually gonna run Izzy just because coming off her injury last year, we just wanted to get her an additional rep in. But the two meets that we're going to, in addition to that, going up to Huntsville, that's our regional course. So I thought it was important for us to get on that course and kind of see it and get a chance to run it before the regional meet. Because typically I don't like to race that early. I don't like to race a lot in the early part of September. If you kind of look back at our previous schedules, we always have to open up and then we kind of take that big break. So now we're kind of opening up, taking a week off, going again, and then we got the big break. But it's just about forcing them to get into the mindset. We'll do a couple things I think a little different in practice this year than we did last year to make sure that we stay sharp. That's the hardest part probably about taking those big breaks, making sure that we're staying sharp mentally, not so much even physically, because we'll always be sharp physically, but just staying ready and understanding. But listen, we talk about opportunities at this level, and cross country is a sport where it just seems more and more now that teams race less and less. Um, and we're just valuing the opportunity at a higher level. So everybody knows that, hey, we've got these two meets, they're high end, they're high caliber, they're quality courses, they're quality competition. We need to go out there and be ready because if we're not, then we've wasted an opportunity. And so, with the upperclassmen too, they should be ready. They should be able. They shouldn't need a rust buster or they shouldn't need to run at some low key meet just to get themselves ready. We do enough of that in practice.
Is it hard not having a home meet to have another opportunity with that and get your kickstart?
Yeah, the home meets are a love-hate relationship because um, they're a little bit of a stress ball to put on and host, and especially when it's early in football season and we're trying to get facilities to get the course ready, and they're like, "Well, we got to get the football field ready, and we got to get parking ready," and I know all that is obviously part of the game, but yeah, it does hurt a little bit that we can't plug that home meet in, and kind of put it right where we want, whether it's the first weekend or whether it's somewhere else in the year, to give us that one additional rep. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because that's something that I'm kind of looking at for next year. And I don't know if we'll host the very first weekend, but maybe somewhere in that late September, early October, that we can just kind of use as a tune-up type of deal before we go into that. We always talk about that 2 weeks before conference is kind of the big last regular season weekend. So, this year we're going to Bradley. Last year we went to Bradley. So that week or 2 weeks prior to Bradley, having something maybe at home that we can kind of tune up a little bit to make sure we're ready for the end of the regular season, before we go off to Big 12s.
Hmm. What's the biggest thing you've seen from this team in practice so far since you've been having them, and what can we expect to see from them when they hit the course for the first time on Friday?
Toughness, I think. Toughness, I hope. We've talked about Friday. There's not going to be a huge race plan, with the 6 or 7 girls that we're taking up there. We talked about setting the tone. And it's hard because it's so early, right? We talk about the Big 12s being on October 31st, and we're going to race on August 31st. Like, we're not even going to remember August 29th by the time October 31st rolls around, right? But this is a chance for them to kind of set the tone. This is a chance for them to not only be excited for themselves, but it's a chance to get their teammates who aren't traveling, who are hanging out at home, which, by the way, they're all going to be working out Friday morning at practice. They're going to have a nice little session before I go pick up the bus and leave. But we want the excitement to start to generate. We want Friday to be the tone setter. So that means that everybody runs for each other. Everybody works on finding that next level, that next depth that they can get to in terms of toughness, both physically and mentally. And we want it to be something that when we show up Saturday morning for practice, that we're all looking at each other going, okay, like, job's done. Let's keep it going. So I just think our wherewithal in knowing kind of what's at stake and what the possibilities are, I think that is the biggest difference between this team and previous teams. They're starting to see that, we might be onto something here. We might have a little good thing going.
Awesome. Well, best of luck. You get started on Friday, so very soon to do that. So best of luck this season, coach.
I appreciate it, Bryson. We will see you around for sure.